The clinic door chimed as the first patients of the day stepped inside. Emily Rowe, 32, and 4 years into this job, offered her usual polite smile from behind the check-in desk. She wore her navy scrubs with her ID badge clipped neatly. Over her chest reception, Emily, in bold. The waiting room smelled faintly of disinfectant and crayons. It was supposed to be a normal morning. A man entered, tall and lean, wearing a dark gray jacket, zipped to the neck despite the summer heat. He held the hand of a little girl who couldn't have been older than 7. Her hair was a tangled mess of chestnut curls, and her skin so pale it looked translucent in the morning light clung close to thin bones. She didn't meet anyone's gaze. "Good morning," Emily said, eyes drifting between them. "Appointment?" "Yes." "Mira Holt, 9 o'clock. She took a fall," the man said. His voice was calm, but clipped like he didn't want to be here longer than necessary. "I'm her father, Daniel." Emily clicked through her schedule and nodded. "Dr. Camden. Room 4. Just need you to sign in, Mr. Holt." Passed him a clipboard, eyes falling briefly to the girl. Mira didn't look up. Her free hand clenched the hem of her dress. "Hi, sweetie," Emily offered gently, voice softening. That's when Myra looked at her. Just for a second, her lips trembled. Then she leaned in close, so close Emily could feel the warmth of her breath, and whispered, "Don't tell him." The words were barely audible. Emily blinked. "What?" But Mira had already stepped back. Rejoining Daniel's side like nothing had happened, Emily tried to shake it off. Kid said weird things. Maybe she was scared of shots or blood work. Still, her stomach knotted in a way it hadn't before. "You're all set," she said quickly, handing the clipboard back. "Take a seat. They'll call you soon." Daniel nodded once. Mira didn't speak. They sat down in the corner of the waiting area. He placed a firm hand on her shoulder, not unkind, but tight, as if he was afraid she might run. Minutes passed. A toddler screamed at the sticker machine. A mom, in leggings, sipped her iced coffee. Life moved, normal as ever. But Emily kept glancing at Myra. The girl sat rigid, her feet not touching the floor. She was shaking now. Very slightly, barely noticeable, but the tremble ran through her whole body. Emily typed something meaningless into her computer to avoid staring. She tried to focus. Insurance verifications, phone messages, next appointment, reminders. It's all routine. But her mind kept circling back to those 3 small words. Don't tell him. She looked up again and met Amira's eyes. There was a kind of silent pleading there, something hollow and scared. Before she could get up, Nurse Layla opened the hallway door. Mira Holt. Daniel stood and guided Mira forward, hands still resting on her shoulder like a vice. "She's a little nervous," he said, half apologetic. Layla smiled. "Totally normal. Come on, sweetheart. We'll go nice and easy." As they walked away, Myra looked back at Emily just once. It wasn't a look a child should ever have to give. A mix of fear and ... warning. Emily waited until the hallway door swung shut before she let herself exhale. 15 minutes passed. Emily checked in a pair of twins with pink casts, answered a call from billing, and printed forms for the vaccine. Fridge inspection. She was halfway through logging inventory when Dr. Camden's name lit up the clinic intercom. "Emily, can you come to the back a moment?" That was unusual. She buzzed herself in and walked down the corridor, passing room after room until she reached the nurse's station. Dr. Camden, known since pediatrician in his late 50s, stood beside Layla. They both looked ... tense. Mira's scan came back strange, Camden said, voice low. "We need to confirm a few things before moving forward. Can you check the file parental consent ID? Anything that seems off?" Emily nodded. Her father gave his name as Daniel Holt, signed the intake. Camden exchanged a glance with, "Layla, check it again." Emily felt a chill rise on her arms. "Why? What's wrong?" "She has older fractures, ones that healed badly, signs of multiple injuries, not just one fall." He paused, and she flinches when he's near her. Emily's thoughts spiraled. Mira's whisper came back in full force. "Don't tell him. Back." At the front desk, she pulled out the clipboard and rechecked the info. Daniel's handwriting was neat, but something felt staged. His emergency contact box was left blank. Insurance. Self-pay. The listed address. A motel on the highway. She checked the city record system. Nothing came up under Myra Holt. No school, no vaccinations, no pediatric file. It was like she didn't exist. Emily's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She should alert someone. Who? Emily. Layla had returned, her face pale. Yeah. You okay? No, not really. She hesitated, voice cracking. That little girl told me not to tell him. Layla's brow furrowed. Tell him what? I don't know, Emily said. But I think she's in trouble. They stared at each other for a long moment. From behind the hallway glass, Daniel sat waiting, calm as ever, legs crossed, eyes still, watching. The hallway felt colder than it should have. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Layla gently guided Mira through the corridor. The little girl's small fingers clung tight to her, sleeve reluctant to move. It's okay, honey, Layla murmured, her voice a hush of reassurance. We're just going to take a few pictures, that's all. Myra said nothing. She only stared ahead, wide-eyed and unblinking, as if she were walking into something she couldn't explain but already feared. Inside room 4, a cheerful mural of cartoon animals lined the wall, a giraffe with glasses, a bear holding balloons. But the brightness couldn't cover the hum of medical machines or the sterile chill in the air. The contrast was unsettling. Layla knelt down to Myra's level. Have you ever had a scan before? Myra shook her head slowly. It doesn't hurt, Layla said gently. You just have to lie really still. It's like a statue. I think you can do that? Mira hesitated, then gave the tiniest nod. The scan technician, Marcus, prepped the machine. He glanced at Mira and gave Layla a look one they'd exchanged before with kids who came in looking bruised and broken. He didn't ask questions. Yet Layla helped Mira up onto the padded table. But the moment she tried to step away, Mira's hand shot out and latched onto her wrist. Please don't leave. Dad. Mira whispered so quietly it was almost breathless. Layla's heart squeezed. I'll be right here, I promise. As the table slid into the scanner, Marcus adjusted his settings and peered at the first images on the screen. Layla stayed near Mira, keeping her calm. But even before the scan completed, Marcus stiffened. Can you bring Dr. Camden in here? He murmured. Layla nodded, lips pressed into a thin line. She walked out, her shoes silent on the tile. Emily noticed the change in the air before she even saw Layla emerge. Daniel Holt was still seated in the waiting room. Legs shaking now, fingers drumming rapidly on the armrest. His gaze kept darting. Between the hallway and the front desk, something in his stillness had evaporated. He wasn't calm anymore. Emily pretended to focus on her screen as Layla approached behind her. He saw me walk out alone, Layla whispered, eyes on Daniel. He's watching everything. What did Marcus find? Emily asked, voice barely audible. I don't know yet. His face said enough. They both turned. Slightly Daniel was staring now, not blinking. Layla walked briskly back to room. For inside, Dr. Camden had joined Marcus at the monitor. The room was silent but heavy, as if something monstrous had just taken shape in the light of the screen. Camden exhaled slowly, rubbing his jaw. That's not from a bedfall. No, Marcus agreed. This here healed rib fractures, maybe 3 or 4. Some partially healed wrist damage. In this spot. He pointed to a hazy area on the scan. Blunt trauma. Recent. Could be from weeks ago, Camden murmured, voice low.
Ow.
Could be days. Either way, someone's lying. Behind them, Mira remained completely still on the table, eyes shut. Tight Layla returned to her side as soon as the scan completed, gently helping her down. You did amazing, she whispered. So brave. Mira nodded faintly, then reached for Layla's hand again. Back at the front desk, Emily pulled up Mira's intake file again. Everything about it screamed temporary. a motel address, a throwaway number. No school records, no insurance, no pediatric history. She opened a second browser. Windows searching local missing children reports, nothing under the name Mira Holt, but something in her gut told her Holt wasn't her real name. Emily's screen dimmed as she leaned back, watching Daniel now. He stood up suddenly and paced toward the desk. "Is she done yet?" he asked, tone stiff, eyes darting. Emily kept her voice steady, still with the nurse. "The scan takes a little time." "I don't like waiting," she offered a practiced smile. "I understand." Daniel didn't move away. He looked at her badge, her hands, the monitor. "You always this thorough?" he asked. Emily's chest tightened. "It's clinic policy." Daniel nodded slowly. But there was a flicker of something beneath his surface, an almost imperceptible twitch at the corner of his mouth. Not a smile, something darker. Then he turned and walked back to his seat. Emily immediately reached under the desk and pressed the silent alert button beneath the drawer, the one linked directly to Dr. Camden's office. Inside room 4, Camden stepped out for a call to CPS. "Keep her here as long as you can," he told Layla, before disappearing. Down the hallway, Layla glanced down at Mira, who now sat on the edge of the table, kicking her feet. "You're very brave," she said again. "You know that." Myra didn't respond. Instead, she reached over and picked up a piece of scrap paper from the supply tray. With a purple crayon from the basket, she began drawing in slow, careful strokes. "What are you drawing, sweetheart?" Myra didn't look up. As the image took shape, Layla felt her blood run cold. It was a Dora, heavy one, with a thick lock drawn in red crayon. Behind it, 2 small figures, with tears falling from their stick figure eyes. Back at the desk, Emily saw Dr. Camden's door open. He gave her a tight nod. Call received. CPS was on their way. Daniel stood abruptly again. "This is taking too long," Emily tried to deflect. "Sometimes scans need to be repeated, motion blur and all that, but I'll check." She stood up, walking toward the hallway. Daniel followed without permission, staying a few feet behind her. Emily's heart raced. She turned and gently blocked his path at the hallway entrance. "I'm sorry, sir, but patients must remain in the waiting area." Daniel stared through her. His hands were clenched now. She's not used to being around strangers. She's in good hands. Just a few more minutes. He didn't move. Just watched her blinking. Then, slowly he turned and returned to his seat. Emily exhaled, the breath she'd been holding. Inside room 4, Mira handed her drawing to Layla and whispered, "I didn't want to go with him." Layla crouched beside her, her voice trembling now. "I know, sweetie. You don't have to. Not anymore." Dr. Camden stood quietly in his office, phone pressed tightly to his ear as he watched the clinic hallway through the small square window. In his door, his other hand gripped the edge of the desk, knuckles white. "Yes," he said. 7-year-old girl.
MRI.
Shows healed fractures, wrist. Current abdominal bruising, no medical history on file. Alleged father goes by Daniel Holt. Something's wrong. Something's very wrong. The voice on the other end of the CPS emergency line asked the usual questions. Camden answered calmly, clinically, as if listing symptoms. But, beneath his professional tone was a quiet fury. "Keep him occupied," the agent said. "We're dispatching someone now." Camden hung up and took a long, measured breath. Then he stood tall, straightened his coat, and stepped back into the hallway. Masking the storm behind his eyes, Daniel was on his feet again. This time he didn't bother pacing. He stood planted near the desk, eyes fixed on the door Mira had disappeared behind nearly half an hour ago. Emily, doing her best to appear composed, glanced at him. "Can I help you with something?" "I don't like waiting this long," he said, voice tight but even. "She gets anxious. She's doing great, I promise," Emily replied smoothly. "Layla said she's been really brave." He blinked. "Slowly? Did Layla say that? Or did someone tell you to say it?" Emily kept smiling, but inside her nerves snapped tight like piano wire. Before she could answer, Dr. Camden appeared. "Mr. Holt," he said warmly. "Good to see you again." I'm Dr. Camden handling Mira's case today. Daniel nodded cautiously. Is she finished? Camden gestured toward his office. Almost. Thought we'd chat about what we've found so far. Go over her scans. Together. Just protocol. Daniel hesitated. She's safe and resting, Camden added quickly. Won't take more than 5 minutes. Reluctantly, Daniel followed. Inside the office, Camden pulled up the MRI scans on the monitor. He moved slowly, deliberately, each click deliberate and controlled. The screen filled with black and white cross-sections of a child's fragile frame. Now, according to the intake, Camden began, you said she fell out of bed 2 nights ago? Daniel nodded. This is what we found, Camden said, highlighting one section. There's bruising here, possible abdominal trauma. But these fractures here, he pointed to several rib outlines. They're older, healed, likely from separate incidents. Some wrist damage, too. Daniel leaned closer, squinting at the images. She's clumsy, he said quickly. She bumps into things. I told her to stop jumping on the mattress, but he shrugged. She doesn't listen. Camden gave a small nod. Understood. Kids are unpredictable. But his eyes never left Daniel's. Her records show no prior pediatric visits. He continued casually. Has she seen another provider? Not really, Daniel replied. We move a lot for work. Traveling keeps us off the grid. What kind of work do you do? Daniel smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Freelance construction. I build things, fix things. Camden didn't respond. He just studied the man for a moment. How he carried himself, how calm he pretended to be. And yet, the tension in his jaw, the twitch in his finger, the slight tightening in his throat when he swallowed. Too rehearsed, too polished. You said she's your daughter? Daniel's smile faltered. Yes, she doesn't seem to share your last name. Long pause. She's from my previous relationship. Paperwork still pending. Camden nodded again, slowly closing the scan window. Of course. Happens more than you'd think. Daniel sat back in his chair, watching. Mind if I check on her? He asked. We're just finishing up some notes, Camden said. Might be another few minutes. I kill. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Feels like you're stalling. Camden stood. If there's anything you'd like to share off the record, I'm here. We're not law enforcement, just trying to help. Daniel stood too. Taller, shoulders squared. There's nothing to share. The room was quiet for a beat too long. Of course, Camden said finally. I'll have someone bring Myra back out shortly. Emily saw Daniel leave the office a few minutes later. His face was unreadable, somewhere between confused and calculating. He walked past her without a word, sitting back down in the waiting room with slow, deliberate movements. She waited until he looked away before slipping back into the hallway. Dr. Camden met her halfway. CPS is en route. He whispered, Keep him calm. Don't provoke. If he asks for her, delay however you can. Emily nodded. And Mira? She asked. She's scared, Camden said. But she's talking. In the back, Layla sat beside Mira in the small break room. A juice box in one hand and a soft blanket draped over her lap. Mira looked smaller somehow, even as she clutched her drawing tightly in her hands. What's this? Layla asked softly, pointing to the red door. It's where he keeps her, Mira whispered. Who, my mommy? Layla's throat tightened. He keeps her mommy. Behind a door. Mira nodded, said she broke rules. So she stays. There now, Layla steadied her voice. For how long? I don't know. A long time. Back at the front desk, Daniel stood suddenly. I want to see her now. Emily looked up. They're just finishing some follow-up notes. No more notes. His tone cut the air clean. She's my daughter. I have the right. Emily kept her voice light, despite her pounding heart. I understand. I'll go check again. She turned quickly down the hallway, leaving him behind, but not before she saw him glance toward the exit. And then the clock. He knew something was coming, and he was starting to plan his next move. Emily shut the hallway door behind her and exhaled hard. The air inside the staff lounge was cooler, quieter, a buffer from whatever Daniel Holt was. Sat at the corner table, her hands cradling a coffee she hadn't touched in over an hour. Her eyes met Emily's with silent urgency. Neither of them spoke at first. Then Emily said, barely above a whisper, "He's lying." Layla nodded slowly. "I know." Emily sat across from her, still shaking slightly. "She told me something when she walked in this morning." "Mira." Layla leaned in. "What?" Emily's voice cracked. She said, "Don't tell him, Layla." Closed her eyes for a moment, Emily continued, her hands clenched in her lap. "At first I thought maybe she was scared of needles or didn't want to tell him she was hurt, but now we both know it's bigger than that, Layla." Finished. They were quiet for a beat. Emily reached into her scrub pocket and pulled out the intake form. She slid it across the table between them. "I've been staring at this since he signed it. There's no emergency contact. No insurance. Phone number goes straight to voicemail, some automated message." Layla scanned the form. "That address?" Emily nodded. "It's a motel. One of those cash-per-week places off the highway." Layla's lips pressed into a thin line. "So he's living off the grid. Or hiding something." Emily leaned closer. "And look, here he listed her name as Mira Holt. But when I ran a soft search through the child welfare system just now, nothing came up under that name. No school records, no immunizations, no birth certificate in state." Layla's brow furrowed. "So either she's from out of state, or Holt isn't her last name." Layla tapped the form. "Is she?" Emily looked toward the door, toward the clinic where Myra waited, quiet, watchful, terrified. "That's what we need to find out." They logged into the shared clinic terminal and pulled up the visitor surveillance footage. Toggling through recent patient files, the last 24 hours showed Daniel arriving just after 8:55 a.m. Myra at his side, clutching a battered pink backpack. Emily paused the screen. "There," she said, pointing. Layla narrowed her eyes. "That backpack." Emily nodded. "It looks familiar." She opened a lost child report database, fingers flying across the keyboard. "I've got a sick feeling," she muttered. One by one, images loaded onto the screen: missing children, cold cases, parent abductions, then dashed there. She was same eyes, same curls, same backpack. Name: Mira Jansen. Age: 7 missing, 8 months reported abducted. A non-custodial individual following custody dispute. Mother: Carla Jansen. Father: N.A. Parental rights never assigned to biological father. Suspect last known alias David Holton. Froze. "Holton," she whispered. "Not Holt. Holton." Layla sucked in a sharp breath. He used an alias. Emily clicked deeper into the report. It listed multiple sightings, a warrant issued, a license plate to watch for a van, out-of-state plates believed to be moving through rural areas. Mira had last been seen outside a grocery store in Arkansas, and now she's here, Emily said. Layla stood, fists clenched. "We need to keep him here, no matter what." Emily nodded. "CPS is already on the way, but if he suspects anything, he'll run." Through the glass wall of the lounge, they could see the waiting room. Daniel sat with his back perfectly straight, his fingers tapping slow patterns against his thigh. Eyes scanned the hallway like a predator waiting for movement. Emily whispered, "He knows something's changed." Layla walked to the supply closet, pulling out a clipboard. "Then we give him something routine to distract him." A moment later, Layla approached the front desk. "Mr. Holt," she called brightly. Daniel turned sharply. "I just need to verify a few routine forms," she said with a smile. "Pediatric liability stuff. Won't take long." Daniel stood. "Is she coming out?" Soon Layla said. "This is just housekeeping." He eyed the clipboard, then took it with a forced smile. "Always paperwork." As he sat back down, Layla returned to Emily, whispering, "We buy time. We don't confront. Not yet." Emily's eyes didn't leave him. "We're not trained." "For this?" Layla exhaled. "No, but we're all she's got." Back in the break room, Ira sat drawing again. The second page was even darker. A red figure with long arms stood behind a small girl. Black scribbles covered the face. Bars drawn around both of them. Marcus, the technician, peeked in. "She's been asking about her mom." Layla nodded. "Keep her company. We're almost there." Marcus lowered his voice. That man Daniel, I know is kind. I had a cousin in foster care. Same vibe. Charm on the outside. Control underneath. Emily felt a chill ripple across her skin. He's unraveling. We need backup. Minutes later, Emily's phone, VIBRATED. Unknown caller. She picked up. Is this Emily Rowe? A woman asked. Yes. This is Officer Tracy Mendez, responding on behalf of Child Protective Services. We're 5 minutes out. Stay calm. Do not let the suspect leave the premises. Emily whispered. He's watching us. Don't give him a reason to move. We're approaching with caution. The line went dead. Emily returned to the desk and sat slowly, trying to still her trembling hands. The walls of the clinic felt thinner now, like everything could be shattered with one wrong move. Daniel looked up. He stood, walked to the desk, leaned in just enough. I want to see her. Emily forced a smile. Absolutely. They're just finishing up. Any minute now. His eyes scanned her face. You sure about that? There was something in his tone, a hint of goodbye. Emily nodded. I'm sure. He stared at her, then turned around and walked toward the exit. Emily's heart stopped, but he didn't leave. He only peered outside through the glass, his eyes flicking left, then right, looking for something. Or someone. Emily's fingers hovered over the keyboard, the glow of the monitor casting pale light across her face. Her heart pounded like a drum in her ears as she reopened the clinic's record system, this time with administrative override access. She entered everything she had. Mira Holt, Daba Prox, 7 years old, guardian. Daniel Holt. Nothing. No immunization. Records, no birth certificate, no emergency contacts, no prior visits, no existence. Emily tried again, swapping Holt for Holton. Still nothing. But the database didn't lie. Now she was certain. Mira wasn't his, at least not in any legal or medical sense. Just as she was about to call Camden back. Her phone VIBR, ATED, private number. She hesitated before answering. Emily. Rowe? The voice asked. Calm, professional, female? Yes? This is Amanda Lacey, Social Services Crisis Division. I'm assigned to the incoming CPS call. Emily stood instinctively, moving away from the front desk. Did you receive the missing child report I sent? You did. That's how we linked her. The photo and backpack matched the Mira Jansen file. The suspect David Holton is wanted in 2 states. Do not confront. Keep him inside. Officers are minutes away. Emily exhaled slowly, looking through the glass toward Daniel. He stood with his back to her, still watching out the front windows. His right hand now clenching and unclenching. You have about 4 minutes, the woman on the line said. Distract him however you can. Emily's mouth felt dry. Understood. She hung up and grabbed a blank intake revision form from the side drawer, then walked slowly toward Daniel. Mr. Holt, she called, keeping her voice light. He turned. Now what? I just realized something, she said, holding the clipboard. Like a shield. Your signature's missing on one of our updated privacy forms. Could I borrow you for just a moment? His eyes narrowed. I signed everything already. No. But our system flags it if even one line is left unchecked. Just takes a second. Daniel stared at her. Really stared. Then slowly nodded. Emily led him toward the counter again, handing him the clipboard and gesturing to a chair. The pen in his hand hovered above the page. He looked up. You all seem nervous today? Emily's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach. Her eyes flew seasoned chaos. We're all running on caffeine and fear. Daniel chuckled, but it was hollow. Still, he scribbled something that resembled a signature. Where's Mira? He asked suddenly. Still with Dr. Camden, Emily lied. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. I don't think she likes it here. She's done very well, Emily said. Daniel held her gaze. Ow! She's not good with strangers. She's had a hard life. Emily's heart twisted not from pity, but fury. A man like this, using vague trauma to shield something unspeakable. Maybe now's the time that changes, she said softly. His jaw flexed. But he said nothing, in the pediatric. room. Mira sat cross-legged on the exam table, her small face solemn. The crayons in front of her were scattered. She picked up a black one and began scribbling hard across a fresh page. Layla stood nearby, arms folded across her chest. "What's your drawing, sweetie?" Mira didn't answer. She just kept coloring until the entire page was a black box thick. Overlapping lines, layered so deep the paper tore in one spot. Then she picked up the red crayon and began drawing over it. A figure emerged, looming, arms too long. No face, just an X where the eyes should be. Layla crouched down slowly. "Who is that?" Myra paused, then whispered, "He watches when I sleep." Layla felt her blood run cold. Mira flipped the paper and began a new drawing. This one was simpler. A locked door. Behind it, 3 stick figures, all small, all crying. "Who's behind the door, Mira?" The girl's hand froze. "My mommy and the other girls." Layla's voice trembled. "What other girls?" Myra didn't answer. Back at the desk, Emily glanced out the front window. Flashing lights glimmered faintly in the distance. To police. SUVs, quiet, no sirens. They were getting closer. She turned her attention back to Daniel. He was now tapping his pen against the form, clearly restless. He looked at her again. "How much longer?" "Just about done," Emily said. "Be good to go." He didn't look reassured. Instead, he leaned back and scanned the clinic slowly, methodically, as if trying to memorize every exit. Then, under his breath, he muttered, "I should have never come here." Emily stiffened. "I'm sorry," she asked, trying to stall him. He stood up abruptly, pushing the clipboard aside. "I think we're leaving." Her heart jumped into her throat. Mr. Holt, but he was already moving. Down the hallway, Layla heard the commotion and turned. To Marcus. "Stay with her," she whispered. Then she rushed toward the lobby. Daniel had already made it. Halfway across the waiting room, when the front doors opened with a hard thud, 2 uniformed officers stepped in, badges raised. "David Holton." One asked firmly. Daniel stopped. Just for a second, then he bolted toward the side exit, Emily yelled. Back hallways, heading to the staff lot. The officers chased him through the hallway, radios crackling. Layla pressed herself against the wall as Daniel ran past, eyes wild. But just as he reached the fire door, another officer emerged from outside, taser drawn, hands where I can see them. Daniel froze. A flicker of something crossed his face, not fear. Resignation. He raised his hands. Minutes later, Daniel sat cuffed in the back of a patrol car outside the clinic, breathing heavily, lips tight. Emily watched from the doorway, arms wrapped around herself. "He almost made it," she whispered. Layla stood beside her. But he didn't. Inside, Mira peeked through the blinds, her eyes wide. "Is he gone?" she asked. Emily knelt beside her. "Yes, sweetheart, he's gone." Mira clutched the black crayon, drawing to her chest like armor. "What happens now?" she asked. Emily smiled gently. "Now we find out where you really belong." The late morning sun filtered through a haze of clouds as Emily stepped out the side exit of the Lakeside Pediatric Clinic, the door clicking softly shut behind her. The air hit her like a slap, humid, heavy, but strangely quiet. She needed a moment. Inside, police were questioning Daniel Holton, really now, handcuffed and seated between 2 officers in exam room. Mira had been taken to a private room with the CPS investigator and Layla. For now, she was safe. But Emily's body hadn't caught up. Her hands still trembled. Her heart still raced. The chill of fear hadn't left her. She closed her eyes and took a long breath. That's when she saw it. Daniel's van. It was parked awkwardly at the far edge of the staff lot, partly hidden behind a row of shrubbery. Paint was dull gray, splattered with mud, and the license plate matched the bolo listed in Mira's missing child report. The engine was off, but the hood still shimmered faintly warm. Emily narrowed her eyes. Something wasn't right. She moved slowly toward it. Step tentative. Her footsteps echoed in the empty lot. She paused at the driver's side window. The interior was cluttered. Fast food wrappers, scattered receipts, a half-empty bottle of orange soda. Nothing unusual at first glance. Then she heard it, a sound, soft, metallic, clink. Emily froze. She leaned in closer. Clink it was coming from the back of the van, muffled, irregular, like something shifting against metal. She circled to the rear window. The glass was tinted, but not enough to block everything inside. Beneath a mess of clothes and tattered blankets, something moved. Emily's breath caught. She reached for her phone and carefully activated the camera, raising it to the glass. She adjusted the brightness, zoomed in, and snapped a picture. She lowered the phone and squinted through the dirty glass. A corner of a pink child's sneaker peeked out from under the blanket. Right next to it, a length of heavy chain, coiled loosely, the end of it fixed to the floor with a crude metal hook. Her stomach dropped. Another clink. This time, followed by a short, abrupt movement of the blanket. A shape, small. Curled. Emily stumbled back a step. Oh my God. Her hand shook as she pulled up the photo to make sure. The chain was real. She wasn't Myra's, it was smaller. And the blanket moved again. She turned and ran. Inside the clinic, Officer Mendez was standing at the nurse's station, taking statements from Dr. Camden. Emily burst through the hallway door, breathless. The van. Mendez turned instantly. What about it? There's someone in it. I think it sounded like chains. There's a sneaker. A child's sneaker. Mendez's eyes sharpened. You're sure? Emily handed her the phone. I took this 10 seconds ago. Mendez examined the photo. Where? Emily pointed back. Lot. Far left corner. Mendez was already radioing backup. Stay inside, she ordered. Lock the doors behind me. Emily nodded, her throat dry. Please be careful. Outside, the officers approached the van with weapons holstered, but hands ready. One moved to the driver's side while the other circled toward the rear. Clink. The sound came again, clear now, deliberate. The rear doors creaked as the officer unlatched them slowly, then a sharp gasp. Inside, curled in a fetal position under the mess, was a little boy, no older than 5. His face was filthy, and his wrists bore the red outlines of something once tightly fastened. His eyes blinked up at the officer, dazed and hollow. Got a live child, the officer called out. We need medical and child services immediately. The boy didn't speak. He just reached toward the officer with trembling hands. From inside the clinic, Emily watched it all unfold through the hallway window. She clutched the edge of the counter. Breath caught in her throat. Another child. He had another child. A boy, silent and shackled inside a van parked just yards from where Mira had whispered her warning. Layla stepped beside her, eyes wide. Oh my God, she breathed. They found him, Emily whispered. They could have driven away with both of them. No one would have known. Emily nodded slowly. They could have. But they didn't. Later that afternoon, the boy was identified as Noah Carmichael, reported missing from a neighboring state 2 months earlier. His mother had posted daily appeals online, desperate for any trace. She had no idea her son had been transported across state lines and locked in the back of a van behind a children's clinic. Daniel Holton had been hiding in plain sight, and now Emily couldn't stop thinking about one thing. How many others were there? In the break room, Mira sat beside the social worker, coloring again. But her strokes were calmer now, softer this time. She was drawing a sun. Layla leaned in. That's new. Mira nodded. He can't see me now. No, Layla said gently. He can't. Emily stood nearby, watching silently. Then she asked Myra, the boy in the van, Do you know him? Myra looked up, eyes uncertain. He didn't talk much, but he was nice. Did you see other kids? Layla asked carefully. Mira stared down at the crayon in her hand. One time she whispered, At the place with the metal stairs. Emily's heart skipped. What place? But Mira had gone quiet again. The social worker placed a hand on her shoulder. That's enough for now. Layla gave Emily a look. We need to dig deeper. Back at the front desk, Emily sat down and opened the police database portal again. She began searching for more missing children, boys, girls from states Daniel had passed through. Ones near motels, ones from towns like theirs. The list kept growing, and the realization Myra might not be the only one he lied about. The hallway lights flickered once, then steadied. A strange silence settled over the clinic, thick and electric. Emily could feel that something in the air had changed. Daniel Holton knew he wasn't guessing anymore. He knew the moment the second police cruiser left with the rescued boy. Noah Carmichael Daniels' demeanor had shifted. His silence had curdled into something meaner, tighter. His eyes, once vaguely annoyed, were now sharp, scanning corners, door frames, people's faces like he was counting exits. Emily felt it the moment he walked back in from the hallway. He didn't ask where Mira was this time. He just headed straight for the back. "Mr. Holton," she said, stepping in front of him. He didn't stop. "David Daniel," she corrected quickly. "You can't just—" He halted inches from her, and for a moment neither of them moved. Then his voice, low and cold. "Where is she?" Emily tried to breathe evenly. "She's still with Dr. Camden?" "No, she's not. I saw Camden." "Leave 10 minutes ago? Don't lie to me." She swallowed. "I think you should sit." Daniel's hand slipped inside his coat pocket. Emily didn't understand what she saw at first. Just a glint of metal, something small on his fingers. Then it clicked. A scalpel. From the exam tray. One he must have taken before officers had searched him. Her mouth went dry. "You think I don't see what this is?" Daniel hissed. "You think I don't know how this ends?" Emily glanced around, no one else in sight. Layla had taken Mira to one of the deeper exam rooms just after CPS left. Camden was on the phone with detectives. The officers were still coordinating from the lot. She was alone. Daniel leaned in. "She doesn't belong here." Emily stood her ground. "She doesn't belong with you." His eyes darkened, and then he moved. In exam room 6, Mira sat on the padded table while Layla gently stroked her hair. The blinds were drawn. The door was locked. Myra looked small, fragile, but she wasn't shaking anymore. "You're doing so well, sweetie," Layla whispered. "They'll be here any minute." Myra tilted her head. "You scared?" Layla paused, then smiled softly. "I was, but I'm not now." Mira glanced at the door. "He doesn't knock." Layla blinked. "What?" "He never knocks when he's angry." Emily darted backward down the hallway, heart pounding. Daniel was only a step behind her, moving fast, the blade glinting in his hand. "Don't do this," she said, trying to keep him talking. "They're on their way." "You can still what?" he snapped. "You think they'll let me walk away?" "I saw the van." He looked in it. Emily kept moving, edging toward exam room 6. She pressed the silent panic button on the hallway panel as she passed it. A vibration buzzed in her pocket. Help was coming. Daniel's footsteps echoed behind her. "They don't understand. Mira needs me. I protected her." Emily stopped, turned slowly. "From what?" He hesitated. That was all she needed. "Layla." She screamed. "Lock the door." "Now." Inside room 6. Layla bolted up and shoved the lock into place just as the handle jerked. Daniel slammed against the door. "Open it." He roared, "She's mine." Mira buried her face in the blanket, trembling now. Layla held the door with her shoulder. "Back up, Mira." Behind the curtain. The child scrambled, vanishing behind the exam divider. Daniel pounded again. "She's not safe without me?" Down the hall, Emily saw 2 officers sprinting toward them, weapons drawn. "Drop the weapon," one shouted. Daniel turned. For a second, he looked stunned, like the world had caught up too fast. "Drop it now." The second officer ordered. Daniel blinked. The scalpel shook in his hand, and then he turned the blade on himself. "No," Emily yelled, but one of the officers lunged, knocking him to the ground, the scalpel clattering across the linoleum. Daniel thrashed once, then went still under the weight of both men. His face was twisted, not in pain, but rage. "She was mine," he growled. The officer cuffed him tightly. Not anymore. 10 minutes later, the hallway was sealed off with police tape. EMTs stood by, though Daniel had only minor abrasions. Emily sat on the floor outside room 6, back against the wall, trying to calm her breathing. Layla opened the door gently. "She's okay," she said. Emily nodded, wiping tears she hadn't noticed were falling. "I almost let him in." Layla knelt beside her, "But you didn't." They sat in silence for a beat, listening to the buzz of radios, the murmured voices of officers, the hum of overhead lights. Then Emily whispered he was going to take her. Layla nodded, and we stopped him. Inside room 6, Myra sat quietly on the table, her blanket wrapped around her like armor. She looked up when Emily entered, eyes wide, but no longer panicked. "Is he gone?" Emily nodded. "He's not coming back." Myra tilted her head, said, "You'd lie." "I'm not," Emily said gently. "You're safe now." The little girl was quiet for a long moment. Then she whispered, "He said there were others." Emily's stomach turned. "Other kids?" Myra nodded. "In the place with the stairs, not the van." Emily and Layla exchanged a look. That place again. Back at the front desk. Officer Mendez took Emily's statement, pausing only to check her phone. "We've issued a search warrant for Holton's last known motel and storage unit," she said. "We'll have a task force on it by morning." Emily nodded. "Myra keeps talking about this place. Metal stairs, doors with locks." Mendez made a note. "We'll map out all properties he's been linked to." Layla leaned over. "There's more." Myra mentioned drawings. "More than one girl." Mendez looked up. "We'll need to interview her again with a forensic specialist present." Emily felt the weight of it then. The realization that this wasn't just about one child, or even two. There were more, and they were still out there. The moment Daniel lunged at the exam room door, everything fractured. Emily heard the crack first metal slamming against wood as the handle buckled under his weight. His scream tore through the clinic hallway, raw and animalistic, not like a man, but like something breaking apart from the inside. "Myra," he roared, "open this door." Inside the room, Myra screamed and dove under the table, curling into a tight ball. Layla threw herself against the door from the inside, bracing it with her shoulder. "Go hide," she yelled. The second blow came. Harder. Layla felt the hinges rattle. Outside, Emily stood frozen for one breath. Two then rushed forward. "Daniel, stop." He didn't even glance at her. His focus was wild, obsessive, locked on the child beyond the door like nothing else in the world mattered. He reached into his coat again, not the scalpel this time. Something else, a shard of glass. Jagged, slick with blood already. Emily gasped. Where had he even gotten it? Her eyes darted toward the floor-to-ceiling windows near the exit. One of them was shattered. Spiderweb cracks laced across the lower pane. Daniel must have punched it. Maybe in the panic after the failed escape, the officers had missed it.
Or
maybe they hadn't thought he'd grab the evidence and hide it in his coat. But now, there it was, his weapon. "Put it down, Daniel," Emily cried. But he was already slicing, not at her, not at the door, at himself. His hand shook violently as he carved into his forearm, long and deliberate, like he was trying to release something: guilt, rage, control. "She's not mine," he screamed, blood spraying the wall. "She was never mine." Emily backed up, stumbling into the nurse's station. Layla's voice echoed from inside the locked room. "Call 911. He's losing it." Emily snatched her phone and dialed. Her hands were slick with sweat and her voice trembled. "This is Lakeside Pediatric. The suspect is self-harming and trying to force his way in. We need backup immediately."
it.
Could barely hear the operator's response over the sound of the third slam against the door. Daniel's face was pale now. His arm dripped a red trail across the tiled floor. He turned slowly toward Emily, his expression somewhere between broken and deranged. "She wasn't supposed to leave," he said again, softer now. "None of them were." Emily felt like the air had gone out of the building. "You don't understand," Daniel went on, eyes wide and wild. "She was quiet, obedient. I kept her safe." "You locked her in a van," Emily spat. His hand tightened around the bloody shard. "No," he whispered. "I kept her." Then came the crash. Daniel threw his full weight against the glass panel beside the exam door, trying to break through. The panel didn't give way completely, but a splintered hole opened near the center. Layla screamed from inside. Mira wailed. Daniel's hand reached through the broken glass shredded skin. Muscles tensing, fingertips inches from the inside lock. Emily didn't think. She grabbed the nearest object, a metal tray, and slammed it into his shoulder with everything. Daniel howled in pain and staggered back. Clutching his arm, the glass tore deeper into his skin. Officers burst through the front door seconds later. "Drop it," one yelled, but Daniel didn't drop the shard. Instead, he turned toward the approaching officers and raised it like a promise. Blood dripped from his elbow, his wrist, his fingertips. "She's not supposed to leave," he screamed again. 2 officers tackled him to the floor. The shard clattered. Across the tiles, finally still, Daniel didn't resist. He just lay there, eyes open, staring up at the ceiling like it all made sense only to him. "She was mine," he whispered. "I earned her." Emily collapsed to the floor, her arms shaking, her chest tight. She felt Layla's hands on her moments later, steady and grounding. "He's done," Layla said quietly. "It's over." But Emily couldn't stop staring at the blood trail smeared across the hallway. So much of it, as if something deeper than veins had burst. In the aftermath, EMTs rushed in to treat Daniel's wounds. He was barely conscious, muttering half-sentences as they wheeled him out. She belonged there, with the others, where they don't scream anymore. Detective Mendez walked beside the stretcher, recording every word. "Where are they, Daniel?" she asked. He turned his head slowly toward her, then whispered, "They'll never find the stairs." Mendez stopped in her tracks. The stairs. He smiled faintly. The place beneath the house. Then his head rolled back, and he passed out. Later, in a secure CPS transport van, Mira sat between Layla and a trauma counselor. She clutched a small stuffed bear someone had given her. It was missing one eye. "Can you tell me about the place?" the counselor asked gently. Mira nodded. "Smelled like wet towels, the kind that stay in a bag too long." Layla frowned. "Did it have windows?"
"No, Mira
said. "Only a light that buzzed, and stairs." Mira looked up. "Metal ones. They went down." "To what?" Layla asked. Mira hesitated. "2 doors, all locked, but I could hear crying sometimes." Layla's voice shook. "Were there names?"
Myra
Shook her head. "We weren't supposed to talk." The counselor nodded slowly, jotting everything down. At the clinic, Emily stared at the now empty hallway. Custodial staff had begun scrubbing the blood from the floors. Glass shards sparkled in the light. The wall was stained. Nothing looked the same. Camden walked in beside her, quiet for a while. Then he said, "You saved her." Emily didn't answer. She kept seeing Daniel's hand reaching through the glass, and Myra's eyes from the darkness. "No," Emily whispered finally. "We delayed him." Camden glanced at her. "Now we have to find the rest." The wind rolled through the tall grass, like a whisper no one wanted to hear. Officers stood silently near the edge of the old property line as the sun dipped behind a curtain of gray clouds, casting long, ominous shadows across the abandoned farmhouse. It had taken 2 days of combing through Mira's fragmented drawings and statements, plus a forensic sweep of Daniel's van, to lead them here, an old dairy farm just outside town, listed under a false name Daniel had used 6 years ago. Detective Mendez stood in front of the barn, flashlight in hand. The wooden structure loomed, weather-worn and sagging. A padlock, rusted and bent, hung loosely on the door, already pried open by the search team. "Let's move," she ordered. The door creaked open with a sound like breath being pulled through teeth.
"Oh, gas."
Dust swirled in the beam of her flashlight, dancing in the stale, earthy air/inside. The barn was empty at first glance, just rotted hay bales, rusted tools, broken beams. But then Officer Jameson found it. "Back corner," he called.
"Under the tarp."
Mendez walked over, heart hammering. A large wooden panel sat flush with the ground, half covered by a filthy green tarp. Jameson yanked it aside, revealing a set of old hinges nearly invisible beneath grime. He pried it open. A puff of air hissed. Up from the hole, damp, foul, and wrong. Beneath the trapdoor was a staircase made of metal, slick with moisture and rust. Metal stairs. Mendez's stomach dropped. Call it in. Get lights. We're going down. The descent was slow, each step creaked under their weight as they moved deeper underground. The air thickened with mildew and mold. Somewhere below, water dripped steadily. Tap, 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 the only rhythm in the dark. Then came the smell. Human, sweat, urine, blood, time, and a sound whimpering, faint, raspy. Police. Mendez called, raising her flashlight. They reached the bottom. Concrete floor, bare walls, rusted cot. And a woman, curled in the corner. Arms chained to a pipe, pale skin stretched thin over bone, matted hair, cracked lips. Her breath came in shallow, strained gulps. She blinked against the light. "Ma'am," Mendez said gently, "we're here to help." The woman tried to lift her head but couldn't. Her voice was a mere thread of sound. "Is she alive?" Mendez crouched. "Who?" The woman's lips trembled. "Mira." Jameson's mouth dropped open. Mendez didn't move. "What's your name?" The woman coughed, then whispered, "Carla Jansen." Mendez felt her knees weaken. 2 years ago, Charlie Jansen had vanished without a trace from a bus stop 3 towns over, leaving behind her 3-year-old daughter. Everyone had assumed the worst. Now, here she was, shackled in the dirt beneath a barn, asking if her daughter still breathed. Mendez reached for her radio. "We have a live female victim. Repeat, live. Call medical evac. Get trauma team on standby." Above ground, emergency floodlights bathed the barn in harsh white as paramedics rushed in. Carla was lifted gently onto a stretcher, her eyes searching, frantic. "Please," she gasped. "Please tell me she's okay?" Mendez walked beside her as they loaded her into the ambulance. "She's safe," she said. "Your daughter is safe." Carla broke. Her body shuddered with a mix of sobs and pain. For a moment, she looked almost childlike, small, fragile, unprotected. Then her fingers gripped Mendez's sleeve. "He took others," she rasped. "Girls, one didn't make it." Mendez's jaw clenched. "How many?" she asked softly. Carla closed her eyes. 3 I knew. "I don't know how many came before." Mendez nodded grimly. "We'll find them. But first we're bringing you home." Across town, Emily sat in a quiet room at the Lakeside Trauma Center. Myra lay curled beside her on the couch, half asleep, her small body still wrapped in that old blanket-like armor. The social worker had offered to take over for the night, but Myra wouldn't let go of Emily's hand. The TV buzzed low in the background. Muted news. Footage of flashing lights and crime scene tape. Emily stared at it, barely blinking. Her phone lit up. "Unknown number," she answered quietly. "Hello. It's Mendez." Emily sat up straighter. "You found something?" A pause. "Then we found her mother." Millie's breath caught. "She's alive?" she whispered. "She is. Dehydrated, emaciated, but she's alive. And asking for Myra." Emily looked down at the little girl now, sleeping peacefully against her. She'd waited 2 years for this. Emily's voice cracked. "I'll wake her." At the hospital, Mira stood frozen at the threshold of the trauma unit. Layla knelt beside her. "You don't have to go in right away, sweetie." Mira looked up. "She won't be mad?" "Mad." Layla smiled. Layla smiled. "She's going to be the happiest she's ever been." A nurse led them down the hallway. Room 312. Inside, Carla lay propped up by pillows, an IV in her arm. Color slowly returning to her face. When she saw Mira, she gasped. "Mira?" The girl hesitated for a heartbeat, then ran. Carla opened her arms and caught her daughter, trembling. As she pulled her in, Mira sobbed into her mother's chest, and Carla cried with her, whispering words no one else could hear. Emily turned away, wiping her eyes. Mendez stood at the door, watching quietly. I thought she was dead, Carla whispered. Every night I thought he killed her. She survived, Emily said softly. And so did you. Carla looked up at her. I won't survive unless he never sees the light again. Mendez nodded. We're building the case. Carlos. Eyes burned. He kept journals, wrote everything down. Checked the crawl space beneath the cot. Mendez's heart skipped. Thank you, she said. You just gave us what we needed. Back at the barn, floodlights still lit the hollow beneath the trapdoor. Crime scene techs moved carefully now, cataloging every inch in the crawl space beneath the rusted cot. They found a tin lockbox covered in mildew. Inside, notebooks, dozens each, marked with a child's name and a number. The first read, Mira, to 42 days the second. Noah, 219 days the last had no name. Just an empty space and a fresh page. And beneath the notebooks a photo, a new girl unknown, still missing. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of Carla's heart monitor and the soft rustle of blankets as Mira shifted in her sleep beside her. Outside, nurses passed with trays and clipboards, their voices muffled behind the closed door. Detective Mendez sat in the corner, her notepad resting on one knee. She hadn't said a word in minutes. Carla broke the silence. I never told anyone, because I didn't think it would go this far. Her voice was hoarse, bruised by disuse and dehydration, but her eyes dark, wide, urgent, burned with something clearer now. Regret. You need to understand, she said. Daniel was charming once, not warm, but convincing. He knew how to watch people, how to copy what kindness looked like. Mendez nodded, pen poised. Tell me everything, from the start. Carla shifted upright, wincing as the four tugged. At her skin, I met him at a support group after Mira's father left. I was a single mom, scared, broke. He was attentive, said he didn't mind Mira, that he'd always wanted a child. She looked away. He was gentle at first. Cooked, brought groceries, read to Mira. She called him D before she could. Say Daniel. Mendez said nothing. Carla's voice cracked. Then I got sick, just the flu. But I was in bed for a few days. When I woke up, he'd changed the locks, cut the phone line, kept saying this is safer. No one can take her from us now. Tears streamed silently down her cheeks. He started teaching Mira that I was unstable. I needed to be watched. I didn't even realize he'd forged custody papers until I saw a fake ID with her last name changed to his. Mendez leaned forward. Why didn't you run? Carla looked away. He caught me at the bus station, drugged me. And the next thing I remember was waking up in that basement. Mendez's pen slowed. He told Mira I'd gone away, that I left her. Carla shook her head, furious now. He rewired her world. She thought being locked in motels, moving every few weeks, staying silent around strangers, she thought that was normal. A silence stretched, then Carla whispered, he told her she didn't have a father, it's just him. Across the hospital, Emily walked the corridor with Myra beside her, their fingers loosely laced. Myra looked up suddenly. Is Mommy mad at me? Emily blinked. What? No. Why would she be? I didn't know I wasn't supposed to be with him. Emily knelt in front of her. Sweetheart, that's not your fault. Myra's brow furrowed. But I never asked. I just called him Daddy. Because he made you believe he was, Emily said gently. You were just a little girl. You trusted the people around you. I thought that's what love looked like, Mira whispered. Emily's heart shattered a little more. She pulled Mira into a hug, holding her close. Love doesn't keep secrets, she said. It doesn't lock you away. Mira didn't answer. She just gripped Emily's hand a little tighter as they walked on, in the police briefing room later that evening. Mendez laid it all out. Carla Jansen confirms Daniel Holt, legal name Daniel Hayworth, was never Mira's biological father. He manipulated Carla into a relationship after stalking her for months. Once she attempted to leave, he kidnapped both her and Mira, falsified documents, and disappeared off the grid. She clicked the projector. A DMV photo of Daniel appeared. Cold eyes, clean-shaven, nothing remarkably yet somehow terrifying. We believe he's done this before. Myra wasn't the first. The journals recovered from the property indicate at least 3 other minors, potentially more. Several names were marked with X's. We're running them through the National Missing Persons database. An officer raised his hand. Any leads on Mira's biological father? Mendez nodded. Carla provided his name. We've located him. He was unaware of the abduction. He thought Carla had disappeared voluntarily. He's already on a flight in from Colorado. Another officer asked, "What about Mira?" Mendez hesitated. She's in protective care, but the psychological damage runs deep. She's only beginning to realize what was taken from her. That night, Carla asked for a moment alone with Emily. They sat by the hospital window. The moon paled behind the glass. "You've done more for my daughter in a week than I was able to in 2 years," Carla said softly. Emily looked down. "I only did what anyone would do." Carla smiled sadly. "No? You believed her?" The whisper. "Most people would have brushed it off. You didn't." Emily's throat tightened. "I didn't want to be wrong." "You weren't," Carla said. "But now, I don't know how to explain the truth to her." Emily exhaled slowly. "You don't have to all at once. Just be her mother again. She needs that more than answers right now." Dot. Then her voice broke. "What? Do you think she ever call me mommy again?" Emily blinked back tears. "I think she never stopped." In the clinic, Myra's drawings had begun to change. The latest one showed 2 women standing under a tree, one tall with a badge, one with a nurse's cap, and a small girl between them holding both their hands. Behind them was a van with red X's over it, and above it all, written in purple crayon, "We're not scared anymore." Layla hung it on the bulletin board near the staff lounge. "We should frame that," she said. Emily smiled faintly. "It's not just art, it's evidence of what? That healing is possible," Emily whispered, "even after monsters." In the interrogation room, Daniel sat chained to the floor, his bandaged arm twitching slightly. Mendez leaned in across the table. "We know she's not your daughter. We know you forged the papers. You lied to her, to everyone." Daniel smiled faintly. "She needed someone. I was there. You stole her. I raised her. You imprisoned her mother, protected her from her." Mendez slammed her fist onto the table. "You broke that little girl." Daniel's voice dropped to a whisper. "She still called me daddy." Mendez stood. "You'll never hear it again." The Child Protection Center was painted in soft pastels, but no color could soften what brought kids here. It was quiet, too quiet. Like the silence that follows a storm when the debris is still settling and everyone's afraid to breathe too. Emily stood outside the window of room 203. Through the glass, she could see Myra sitting cross-legged on the floor, her tiny frame dwarfed by oversized beanbags. A therapist sat across from her, gently guiding her through a picture book. Mira wasn't crying today, but she wasn't smiling either. She just was. Existing, not yet healing. Emily waited until the session ended, then stepped in. Mira's head snapped up. A flicker of recognition, then warmth. "Hi," the girl whispered. Emily smiled. "Hi, sweet pea." She knelt down, pulled a drawing pad from her tote bag and held it out. "Thought you might want something to do." Mira took it carefully, like it might break. "There's crayons too," Emily added. The girl's lips pressed into a soft line of gratitude. They sat together in silence for a while. Emily watched as Myra flipped through the empty pages of the pad. She picked out a yellow crayon first, then orange. A sun began to bloom in the corner of the page, messy, childlike, radiant. Then came a face. Simple circles for eyes, a round smile, messy brown scribbles for hair. She handed the pad to Emily. "That's you." Emily's throat closed up. "It's beautiful." Mira tilted her head. "Do you still work at the clinic?" "I do. Even after all that." Emily nodded. "Especially after all that." Later, the psychologist spoke to Emily and hushed. Tones outside the door. "She's making progress. Still has night terrors. Clings to Carla during supervised visits. But she trusts you. That matters. Emily crossed her arms, blinking hard. She said something today. Drew my face next to a sun. She sees you as light, the psychologist said softly. The first person who believed her. Emily didn't speak. She didn't know what to say to that. She also mentioned the whisper again, the psychologist added. The one in the lobby. Emily nodded slowly. Don't tell him, she repeated. It's where it all started. It had been just after 8:15 a.m. that rainy Tuesday morning at Lakeside. Pediatric Myra and Daniel had come in without an appointment. Daniel filled out the paperwork with slow, careful handwriting. Mira clung to his side like a shadow. Emily had smiled, as she always did, spoken softly, offered Mira a sticker, then the whisper, don't tell him. 3 words, barely audible, but enough she could still see Mira's eyes in that moment wide. Hollow, desperate. Emily often wondered what would have happened if she'd brushed it off, if she hadn't looked deeper. If she'd said nothing, maybe Daniel would have walked out with Mira again. Maybe Carla would have died in that cellar. Maybe no one would have ever found the journals or the other names. Emily visited Carla next. The 2 women sat in the recovery garden behind the trauma center, shaded by wind chimes and late summer roses. Mira was inside coloring. She doesn't remember what life was like before him, Carla said quietly. She still calls him D in her sleep. Emily nodded. Trauma has its own timelines. Ah? Carla turned to her.
Ow.
Again, to a child I couldn't protect? You didn't fail her, Emily said. He stole her world. Now you're rebuilding it with her 1 brick at a time. Carla closed her eyes. Sometimes I wonder if I'm one of the bricks or one of the cracks. Emily placed a hand over hers. She sees you. It's what matters. Back inside, Mira sat at the low table with her pad again, the new page. This one was different. A tall rectangular door, beside it a hand reaching for the lock. Behind it, a girl curled up, peeking through a crack. She pointed at it when Emily returned. That was me, she whispered. In the place with the stairs, Emily sat beside her. I thought if I didn't speak, he wouldn't hurt me. You were brave, Emily said. Mira shook her head. No, I was scared. Emily smiled softly. Bravery doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing something even when you are. As night fell and the center dimmed for bedtime, Emily prepared to leave. Myra walked her to the door. Will you come back? Of course, Emily said. Every time you want me to. Mira reached into her tote and took out the pad. She tore out the drawing of Emily with the sun and handed it to her. You can keep it, she said. Emily folded it gently, tucking it into her coat pocket like treasure. Mira hesitated. Then finally, I didn't tell him. Because I knew he'd hurt someone. Emily crouched down, her eyes leveled with the child. You did the right thing. Driving home that night, the city lights blurred into soft halos as Emily replayed the moment again and again the whisper. The scan, the journals, the locked door in the barn. Carla's broken voice, so much horror triggered by 3 words, don't tell him. What if she hadn't listened? What if her heart hadn't stopped long enough to hear the tremor in Mira's voice? Sometimes the biggest cracks form in silence, and sometimes the smallest voices break them. Wide open. Emily glanced at the drawing again, her smiling face beneath the sun. Maybe that's all she was meant to be. Not the hero, not the rescuer, just the one who listened. The photo sat in the center of the evidence board like a haunting question mark. A girl, it's maybe 9 years old, thin, dark eyes, sunken cheeks, dressed in oversized pajamas. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't crying either. Just staring as if waiting for someone to notice. Detective Mendez stood with arms crossed, jaw tense. Behind her, the room buzzed with quiet urgency. The final journal from Daniel's collection had only one name scribbled beneath the photo. Noella. Day 3. 3 days. That meant she was either already gone or barely hanging on. We ran facial recognition, Tech Officer Barnes said, pulling up to screens.
Oh.
No hits on missing persons. We're going county by county now, searching for unregistered homeschool filings or juvenile records that might match. Time? Mendez asked. Photo was printed 7 days ago, timestamp confirms. Then she's still alive, Mendez said. Somewhere. Across town, Carla stood at the sink of her temporary shelter kitchen, the sound of water running beneath her hands. She stared at the plastic plate in the drying rack, but saw only the photo Emily had shown her that morning, the girl's face. Those hollow, waiting eyes. It was the same look Mira had worn for so long. From the living room came Mira's giggles. Emily was teaching her how to make paper stars. For the first time in days, Carla heard the sound of her daughter being a child again, and still. That face wouldn't leave her mind. At the station, the break came quietly. Wait, Barnes said, scrolling. Hold on. This name Noella Brandt. Withdrawn from public school 2 years ago? Never enrolled anywhere else? Mendez leaned over his shoulder. Address? He pointed. Last known was listed to a woman named Celine Brandt. Mother, no father listed. County records show a foreclosure on the home. They vanished after that. Mendez narrowed her eyes. Run the mother's name through Daniel's known associates and aliases. Seconds passed. Then Barnes sat back slowly. You're not going to like this. On the screen, a DMV photo of Celine Brandt, with Daniel beside her, arm around her waist, listed as emergency contact under the alias David Harper. Mendez's breath hissed through her teeth. He had her too. The farmhouse was deeper, into the country than the last one. Overgrown grass lapped at the porch steps. The mailbox hung by one screw. No lights in the windows. The SWAT team waited for Mendez's signal. Thermal scan picks up one body on the first floor. Heat source. Near the center could be a small child, the lead said. Go quiet, Mendez ordered. If she's scared, she may run. They moved like shadows. Inside, it smelled of mold and dust. In the center of the living room, surrounded by piles of blankets, was a girl thin, pale. No. She didn't scream when they entered. She didn't move. She just stared. Her arms were bruised. Her ankle was chained to the radiator. Mendez dropped to her knees. Noella, she said gently. You're safe now. The girl blinked. Are you the one from the story? Mendez paused. What story? The one about the girl who whispered in the clinic, she said. He made me listen to it. Over and over. Mendez swallowed hard. She's real, she said, and she's safe. And now, so are you. At the hospital, Noella barely touched her food. But she let a nurse comb her hair and accepted a plush rabbit from the therapist. When Emily entered the room later, Noella stared at her like she recognized her. I saw you, she whispered. On his computer, you were in the video. Emily nodded slowly. It wasn't supposed to happen, but maybe I'm glad it did. Why? Because it brought you to us. Noella hesitated. Is it okay if I don't talk for a while? Of course, Emily said. You don't have to say anything. She sat beside her in silence. It's the same way she had with Mira, just being there. Present enough, Carla and Mira came to visit 2 days later. The moment Mira entered the room, sat up straighter. The two girls didn't speak. They didn't need to. They just looked at each other like two matching pages from the same story. Then Mira crossed the room and held out a crayon. Want to draw? Noella nodded. The paper slowly filled with lines, sunflowers, stars. Not a single. Locked door? Outside? Mendez leaned against the wall with Emily. She was number 6, the detective said. Emily turned to her. Are there more? Mendez shrugged. Journals ended with her. But predators like Daniel don't just stop. They learn how to hide better. Emily glanced through the window at the two girls coloring side by side. Maybe now they'll learn how to speak louder. Daniel was officially charged with 6 counts of felony kidnapping, 3 counts of unlawful imprisonment, 2 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of human trafficking. During his final hearing, he refused to speak. Just stared at the floor like it wasn't real. When asked if he had anything to say, he smirked. She loved me more than she ever loved them. The judge gave him life without parole. He didn't flinch. But outside the courthouse, Emily, Carla, Mendez, and two little girls stood beneath a wide blue sky. Finally, after everything, unafraid of the light, 6 months later, the Lakeside Clinic installed a small plaque near the entrance. It read, "In honor of the children who whispered and those who listened." Every now and then, Emily would catch patients pausing in front of it. Some tilted their heads, unsure what it meant, but one afternoon, a small girl walked in, saw the plaque and smiled, like Mira, nodded. Exactly like Mira. And sometimes, late at night, when the clinic was empty and quiet again, Emily would sit at the front desk and stare at the file drawer that once held Mira's forged paperwork. She'd open her notebook and write down a single sentence over and over. "Don't tell him." 3 words. A warning. A secret. A beginning.